Cradle, Dogs of Fount, Chapter 40, Part 1. The descent was smooth and they could feel the gradual lowering of the craft. The sun shot through the windows in rays. The plane shuddered a bit one more time as the flaps on the wings slowed the UT-700 down enough for a good landing, or so Nate hoped. The wheels of the plane coughed upon landing, and they all rocked in their seats in deceleration. The relief on each of their faces was so obvious that some even laughed. Now, will we ever get back to Philly? Nate wondered. Welcome to New Hong Kong, warriors, Chief Nolan called out from his front seat. That brought on healthy cheers, and the sun flooded in with the rear gate opening. The heat flooded in too. Nate looked back and saw desert. What was more interesting was that the runway was singular. There were also no markings with numbers or letters for that matter. The runway started abruptly and was preceded by stand. They all waited for moments and unstrapped once the green lights were switched on. Nate helped Heather put on her pack, and once she had all her stuff, she helped Nate put on his pack. Gary was smiling as he walked past. He said effeminately, "How cute, guys." Nate and Gary laughed together and then followed the foot traffic to the tarmac. It was refreshing to be inside even in this heat. But the question was, why were they in a desert when New Hong Kong was an enormous cityscape? Except for what looked like primitive village in the distance, there were no skyscrapers or sleek, sexy quad cars. There is a plot twist coming, I know it, Nate thought. Although Nolan was the only chief here on this mission or in China, there were a handful of commanders that would be leading squads and reporting to Nolan and the higher-ups abroad. There was plenty of milling around for several minutes, but Nate was keeping his eyes open for friendlies or attacks likewise. It was after the squads were grouped together by the commanders that Nate saw an approach of a small caravan of camels and riders. Commander Schmidt put the Fount squad together with Chris Ruiz's Adder squad, and they all greeted and joked around. "What do you make of them?" Ruiz asked Nate about the caravan that was now at the end of the tarmac on the other side of the craft. "Welcoming party," Nate said plainly. "No cars, trucks, or even ATVs. Camels? How primitive are they? New Hong Kong is a tech-heavy city, or so they said." "Keep your eyes and ears open, and we'll make them soon," Nate instructed. Ruiz nodded and put a cigarette in his mouth. Nolan and a couple commanders Nate didn't know the names of walked out toward the caravan and greeted them, stopping them 200 yards away from the rest of the force. They talked while literally everyone was looking down the tarmac at them, wondering what was next. Nate knew some of the warriors would resent being in the dark to this degree, but Nate sensed that it was probably within merits because of the closeness Philadelphia, Fount, and Cyphus' collective were to battle. Nate and Chris's screens informed them to come greet the caravan. He called them the Vine Stars, and he said they were on Philadelphia's side in so many words. And with that, the company advanced toward the caravan, and the closer they got, Nate had an idea of what the people may be like. Although they wore what Nate was taught was traditional desert garb, the eyes of the women and men were keen and nothing close to primitive, and just their body language alone denoted that they were once lived in civilized nations. In other words, they had planted themselves here. They found Commander Schmidt with a man on one of the taller camels, and the two men exchanged jokes, as seen from the consistent smiles and cackles. "Lint, Ruiz, this is Benton," the commander introduced. "He can be trusted, and he will be showing us New Hong Kong." Nate tried to get a closer look of Benton, but the sun was so abusive, so all he could make out was a vague dark copper face. "New Hong Kong? This is New Hong Kong?" Ruiz asked incredulously. "It will be explained, but you guys need to eat. We put together a meal in Tofam village," Benton said pleasantly. "Where's our camels?" Nate joked. "You'll get them once you deflower the Virgin," Benton said. There was a long, awkward silence, and then Benton cracked up and slapped his knee.